Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. And what a beautiful day it is to be an American citizen. We are so blessed, regardless of the rain. We are here celebrating Constitution Day, and we are so glad that all of you could join us for this exciting announcement on how we, and this wonderful coalition of leaders and partners behind me, are going to commemorate America's 250th anniversary over the next year. I'm Erika Donalds, and I'm proud to be the chair of Education Opportunity at America First Policy Institute, and I get to also be your MC for today. My co-chair of the America 250 Civics Education Initiative, Dr. Ben Judge, is here with me, and we just want to welcome all of you, supporters, stakeholders, proud American citizens, to this effort to ensure that our children, our grandchildren, and generations to come are able to have this same celebration of pride in America at its 500th anniversary 250 years from now. I'd like to first call up our incredible Secretary of Education. We are so blessed in this country to be led by Linda McMahon, who has dedicated much of her life to the future of education in this country, whether it be K-12, higher education, her philanthropy, her lending of her expertise in business in this Trump administration to not only expand our civic initiatives from the federal level, but to lead our country in prioritizing academic achievement and excellence and merit across the board, which is the foundational principle of our country. Secretary McMahon, thank you so much for being with us.
It was supposed to bend, but it didn't. Almost knocked it over. Thank you so much, Erika, and really, thanks everyone for having me here today. As we launch the America 250 Civics Education Coalition. And a special thanks to the America First Policy Institute, Turning Point USA, and Hillsdale College for leading this coalition, and I think they're all represented right here behind me. They're assembling this group of nearly 40 organizations dedicated to strengthening civic education across our nation that will help support the department with our incredible America 250 commemorative events throughout the next year. Today, September 17th, Constitution Day, marks the perfect moment to launch this coalition. On this day in 1787, our founders signed the document that has guided our republic for over 2 centuries, enshrining the principles of liberty, justice, and self-governance. Yet as we approach, I'm going to try to say this, the semi-quincentennial in 2026, we face a sobering reality. Civic knowledge, engagement, and constitutional literacy among our youth, I'm going to say it's in decline. I can almost say it is absent, and we have to really refocus on this. A 2025 poll found that only 41% of 18 to 29-year-olds today are proud to be Americans. They can't name the 3 branches of government or explain the Bill of Rights. Can you imagine that? And so why don't these young people love America? Or why aren't they proud to be Americans? It's because they don't know America. We haven't taught them about America. They don't know our history. They don't know the trials and tribulations that led to this being the most wonderful country on the face of the earth. That's why the Department of Education is prioritizing policies that promote robust civic education. We're supporting states in adopting standards that highlight the Founding Fathers, the Declaration of Independence, and the Constitution's enduring wisdom. And we're commemorating America 250 with a nationwide effort to reignite passion for our shared heritage, with over 100 events from today through January 1st, 2027. This coalition's role we are launching today is vital. We need every person in this room in our mission to improve civics education and ensure every student understands what liberty truly means. So I can't really focus enough on literally how dismayed I have been sometimes in my touring that I've done so far around the country when I do encounter the lack of enthusiasm for our country. I go to schools where the Pledge of Allegiance isn't said. And I can't understand that. I mean, I bet most of you in this room, or a lot of you in this room, remember that was the first thing that happened every day in school. You said the Pledge of Allegiance, and where I grew up in the South, you also said the Lord's Prayer. I understand that that's maybe not the right thing in every school, but we have to restore this love of patriotism. We have a president who takes the flag and hugs it. I mean, let's see if we can't bring back that spirit of love and devotion to our country. So that's what we hope to do with this coalition and all the things that we're going to do. We thank you for being here and for your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Secretary McMahon, for your leadership on this initiative. It is truly our honor to work alongside you on this mission. Well, next, we're going to hear from Greg Sindelar, who is the interim president and CEO of America First Policy Institute. Greg.
All right, thank you, Erika, and thank you, Secretary McMahon. They say George Washington was our indispensable man in the revolutionary times. Secretary, I think you're our indispensable woman during these times. And so we're so grateful for your courage and your willingness to lead this forward. And AFPI, America First Policy Institute, is honored to be part of this America 250 Civics Coalition in partnership, obviously, with the U.S. Department of Education and Secretary Linda McMahon, and over 40 organizations. It's an honor to stand here today with many of our partners, and it will be an honor to work with them over the course of the next year and hopefully beyond. The coalition gathered here with me is, simply put, one of America's best. Some of the smartest, most driven, and most patriotic people you'll ever meet. And this coalition is more than a commemoration of America's 250th birthday. It's a commitment and a promise that the next generation will know America's story, understand her founding principles, and have the courage to defend them. Because to know America is to love her. And this is the real purpose of what this coalition is doing. It isn't about some niche educational subject matter concern. It is about the future of the country. We teach the past as a template for the future, and American children who learn about the founding will become American men and women who act as the founders did. American children who learn about the revolution will become American men and women who defend that revolution. And this is not just about textbooks or lesson plans. It's about reigniting the fires of patriotism, strengthening civic literacy, and inspiring Americans of all ages to understand and cherish our founding principles. And it's about shaping a generation of Americans ready to lead, ready to serve, and ready to keep the flame of freedom alive. And Americans, especially parents, agree. In fact, in preparation for the launch of this coalition, at AFPI we conducted new polling, and the results are very clear. 73% of Americans believe our children aren't receiving an adequate education in U.S. history. I'll go back to what I said earlier. To know America is to love America. And if you're dismayed at how the younger generation feels about our country, it's starting in our classrooms. The numbers tell the story, too. 93% of Americans agree that we as citizens don't know enough about our history, and an overwhelming 99% of parents say that they have the right to know what their children are being taught. But these numbers don't just reflect opinions, they reflect a deep commitment to the future, to our future as a nation. Americans care about their country, and they want the next generation to grow up loving it too. And this coalition has been convened to fulfill that desire from the American people, and it is a responsibility we carry reverently. So I'm deeply grateful to our coalition partners, the U.S. Department of Education and Secretary McMahon, for sharing the sacred vision and leading the way. And together we are making history, we are teaching history, and to remember who we are and what America is. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Greg. Well, over the last week, a very difficult week for many of us, the world found out how incredibly impactful Turning Point USA is on our young people. I know I have a middle schooler, a high school graduate and college student, and a college graduate, and every one of them told me every single one of their friends at school, at work, were talking about Charlie Kirk nonstop over the last week. Now, this coalition was put together well before the tragedy of his assassination, but rightfully so. Turning Point USA is one of our partners here, and no better organization to help us reach the young people with a love of country and civic literacy and a determination reflective of Charlie Kirk's legacy to spread that far and wide. And we're so honored Dr. Hutz Hertzberg is here with us, who is the Chief Education Officer for Turning Point USA.
Thank you so much, Erika, Secretary McMahon, the amazing leaders of America First Policy Institute, and distinguished leaders of so many organizations. It's a privilege for Turning Point USA to be a part of this great coalition. Behind me are two ladies that have been wonderful friends to Turning Point over many, many years, Rebecca Dunn and Trish Dunn again, and we're so grateful for their support. And many of you have had significant roles with Turning Point over the years, and we're so, so grateful for that. In the previous time that we had, the previous session, I shared with our folks there that on September 10th, 2025, everything changed for us and nothing changed for us. By everything, I mean when your founder and your chief executive officer is assassinated, really martyred for the things that he believed and taught and stood for, obviously that changes an organization. But it also has changed nothing in terms of the resolve, the commitment, the fortitude, the courage that I'm seeing throughout our organization. I lead the education division. There was not 1 second we thought we're going to pull back, we're going to fold the tents, we're going to cower in fear. It was just the opposite. We're doubling down. We're tripling down. And that spirit is throughout the entire Turning Point USA staff and family. And many of you probably saw Charlie's widow now, Erika Kirk, represent that kind of commitment and courage and fortitude. And we're just so grateful that we believe that though Charlie had a tremendous influence, and many of us can attest to that in various ways, and Erika just spoke to that, we believe perhaps even in his death, that his influence will extend in even greater ways than it ever could in his life. We're committed to that. We're going to commit to that. We're committing to that. And that's why this partnership is so important, because together we can do more. By locking arms together, we can do more to accomplish the very things that Charlie stood for. I saw, as a person involved in Christian higher education for a number of years, independent of what Charlie was seeing, going to all these campuses for all these years, that the indoctrination and the lack of civic knowledge was taking place far before the students get to college. Mm-hmm. It was happening in high school. It was happening in junior high. It was happening in grade schools, unfortunately. And so Charlie had the vision that we were going to go younger. And so 3.5, 4 years ago, Charlie birthed what was then called Turning Point Academy. And he was committed to going younger, to bring the kind of education that we're talking about here today, God-centered, virtuous education that promoted student flourishing, that included a robust civics education component. And so that was launched about 3.5 years ago. And the way that I got involved, very simply, was Charlie was a student at the school that I was leading. Now, it was a K-12 school in the northern suburbs of Chicago, which is where Charlie grew up. I came there as the new president. Charlie was gone at that point, but his reputation, if you will, continued at that school, and his 5th grade teacher was still there. And I said, Cindy, tell me what Charlie was like as a 5th grade student. And she said, well, I have two memories of Charlie, because a few years had passed. Charlie left after 5th grade and ended up in the public school and then went to a public high school in our area. But she said, I remember a couple things about Charlie. First of all, he was always carrying a football around. He always had a football in his locker, and he was carrying a football around. But secondly, she said, he was always organizing the other students. And I thought, you know what, we don't really change that much, do we, when we're young? And so, but here's the other thing, and this really speaks to the heart of who Charlie is and was, and who we are as an organization. She shared with me that during Charlie's 5th grade year, he committed his life to Jesus Christ. And that set the trajectory of Charlie's life. And that faith foundation informed him and really guided him right up to the very last moment of his life. Because to fast forward, the first question that Charlie answered a week ago, right now, was, Charlie, you say you're a Christian, I'm a Mormon, what is the difference? Can you explain that? And so for 15 minutes, Charlie patiently, graciously laid out why he believed the Christian faith was so important and why it was so important to him. And then, of course, we know the second question was on transgender violence, and that's when he was shot. I was speaking to one of my colleagues as they were flying up to Phoenix, and I just called him just to verify that this was a fact. He said that the 2 hours in the flight up from Phoenix up to Utah, Charlie was reading his Bible for 2 hours and texting his pastor with questions. I say all that just to say that to understand what Charlie Kirk was about, to understand what Turning Point is about, to understand what Turning Point education is about, apart from the faith component, is really not fully understanding. We're so grateful. Charlie was a courageous spokesman, and right now he would want all of us to be courageous men and women, speaking the truth in love wherever God has placed us. But it was his faith in his Lord and Savior that gave him the strength and the fortitude and the courage. Charlie had death threats every week. So this was not unusual, except someone actually executed on it. But in the face of those death threats, he continued to do what he did, and that's because of his strong faith in the Lord and the belief that what we're doing here today is absolutely essential to preserve and to continue to develop the next generation that truly loves America, loves God, and is going to make a difference in our country. So it's a privilege on behalf of Turning Point USA to be a partner in this great coalition. We thank you so much, and thank you for caring enough to be here today. We thank all our partner organizations, and again, Secretary McMahon and AFPI. We are so grateful that in God's good providence, you have brought us together for such a time as this.
And forward we will go, just as he would want us to. Many of us, when we think of civic education, one of the symbols, I would say, is the clock tower on Hillsdale College's campus that also accompanies its logo on all of the reading materials and emails and education materials and things that I've had the privilege of work with Dr. Arnn on some of the K-12 initiatives. So Hillsdale College is not just an incredible beacon in higher education as an institution, but the millions of adults that it educates online, and now tens of thousands, probably more than that, students in K-12 with the partnerships that under Dr. Arnn's leadership have come about. And I can attest to what an incredible civic education those students are getting in those schools across the country and emulated by many others. So we're honored to also have Dr. Larry Arnn, president of Hillsdale College, here with us and helping us to lead this coalition.
Thank you, Erika, Secretary, America First. That was lovely. The Latin word crisis is translated turning point. There's a sign that we're in a crisis because there's a disagreement about the meaning of the Declaration of Independence today. The Declaration of Independence states the final purposes of our nation. It's the first nation in history founded with a birthday. The Declaration of Independence brought it to be, and it gives the reasons. What does it mean? Well, in all of the three great crises in American history, in my opinion, are the American Revolution and the Civil War, and now today. And they all have the same characteristic. We're fighting about the meaning of our central idea. Well, you can resolve that by fighting. It won't resolve it, finally. Charlie Kirk was murdered. Charlie Kirk was a friend of mine, like many people here. I admired him very much. But they killed him. It didn't settle anything. That just told us it made it bigger, right? The only way to settle the thing is to read the document and see what it means, and read the people who wrote it, and read the people who opposed it. Do you know the King of England wrote an answer to the Declaration of Independence? You can read that, and you can say, who's right? And that's the exercise we have to go through today. If we are to recover ourselves, we're going to lose our nation if we lose its central idea. And therefore, there's no more urgent work, no more work dispositive of the future than to read and celebrate and learn about that document. It is the meaning of America. That building with the clock tower on it was dedicated in 1852 by a man named Edmund Fairfield, who helped to write the platform that Abraham Lincoln was elected on. And it was dedicated on the 4th of July with a speech that learning and freedom go together, and ignorance and slavery go together. We're going to choose one of those pairs. Everybody here is committed to helping make sure we make the right choice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arnn. We're going to take some questions now, and Rachel and Billy from AFPI are going to help facilitate that.
Any members of the media have questions?
Elizabeth? Thank you. President Trump has been warning against what he says is the radical left damaging our country following the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Do you expect that civic education like this could prevent the rise of that type of ideology in young people?
I'll take this one, I guess. Absolutely. It is critical that we educate our students on the true history of our country. Unfortunately, as we've found in education reform and the efforts that we've had over the past decade or so, our schools, especially our public schools, have been indoctrinating our children in radical ideology, including anti-Americanism and the opposite of foundational American values. And it hasn't just been at the higher education level, it has been K to 12. We've seen the materials, and we've seen the evidence of it in our culture and the thinking of our young people, whom 70% or more think that it is okay to resort to violence if you do not like the speech of another person. Now, that is completely incompatible with the teaching of free speech in America. If our students truly understood the Constitution of the United States, they would never think to say that violence in response to speech would be okay. So the evidence is there, and that is one of the reasons why this coalition exists, because we have to restore true civic literacy in our education institutions, K to 12, higher education, and that is going to be what changes our culture going forward.
Rebecca with Blaze News. I appreciate everybody who is here. I have a question. So there was a report yesterday that came from the University of North Georgia, where a public university, a student alleged that there was a required reading that called Christians, quote, a U.S.-based white supremacist group. A recent example, one of many I'm sure that you guys are all aware of, but I'm curious to know, again, this question is open to anybody. This is a publicly funded university. What can be done to really address issues like this? Because I think many people articulate really well that it contributes to a lot of the rhetoric that has contributed to the divisiveness and just, some of the horrible events we've seen take place recently. So I'd love to know the thoughts. Anybody?
Ben, do you want to answer that? You have some thoughts? Ben Judge is the co-chair of the coalition.
I think it's obviously there's a report like that, and then there's actually what it means for anyone who reads it. I mean, we think about the parents, we think about educators, we think about what other people are dealing with. And one commitment that we've all made as a coalition is that while we will be discussing ideas, this will not be an intellectual exercise. This will be an exercise in helping people who have some responsibility over either a or multiple American souls. If you're a parent, this coalition is to help you. If you are an educator, this coalition is to help you. That, I think, is the greatest way that we're going to be able to combat what you're talking about.
Victoria Churchill, Daily Mail. My question centers around what you believe the role of educators is in actually educating the next generation, maybe how that role has been historically versus how we see it now, especially in the lights of, the events of last week, some of the responses from educators versus, maybe what we wish those responses would have been.
No better person to answer this than Dr. Arnn.
Education comes from a Latin word that means to lead forth. The way forth is the truth. That question about Christians being white supremacist, that's false. And colleges are in business to teach the truth. Now, how do you establish that it's false? Read it. What does it say? It is, in fact, the least threatening of the religions. It's very powerful. I'm one, very much. My college is one. Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world." Very revolutionary thing for the founder of religion to say. No courts, no police, no judges, right? So that's just a fact, right? All you got to do is look it up. Compare it to other religions of the time and now, right? So the truth is, the only way out of this mess is to understand. And I'll just say simply, what do they do wrong? If you read classic philosophy, what you discover is, first of all, they're valuable because they wrote the first books about things in the West. The first book about ethics is called The Ethics. Aristotle wrote it. So they're interested in the source of the information. That is, the source of the information about Christianity is Christianity. And the source of the information about the Declaration of Independence is the Declaration of Independence. And one of the first things a student needs to learn is to stop thinking about what they think about a thing or whether they like about a thing, and first look to see what is the thing. That's why you can go to a four-year college and say something as dumb as that, because it's just obviously not true. It should be refuted by looking at the source.
Amazing. All right, one more question. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie Wilson with Politico. I'm curious, how should our nation's college campuses and classrooms, how should they be maintaining open dialogue in the classroom, but without that veering towards a hateful speech?
I might have to pass this one to Dr. Arnn as well, because I know your answer to this type of a question about free speech in the classrooms.
Hillsdale College is 181 years old, and it has a speech code. And it's very old. We actually don't know how old it is. It's as old as anybody can remember. It is that you can say anything you want to if you can manage to say it in a civil and academic manner. And, that means, what is an academic manner? An attempt to discover the truth. And, I can just tell you, I met Charlie Kirk when he was 19 years old, and everybody else was flattering him. I never flatter 19-year-olds. That's a terrible mistake, right? His good nature in reaction to that is the reason we became friends, and I learned what a splendid man he is. But the truth is, you're supposed to have a sense of humor. You're supposed to be trying to find the truth. And the word colleague, which is cognate with the word college, is another word for friend. And so if you're going to join the college, be a colleague. And that's the condition of entry. After that, you can make any dumb argument you want to, and somebody else can call it dumb.
I'm going to add to that, too. We can't just give lip service to diversity of thought on campus. We've seen some college campuses that purport to welcome diversity of thought, and then shut down conservative speakers. They don't employ conservatives on their faculty in any of their advisory roles. They have rejected conservative clubs. I know Turning Point has experienced that, where they're not being approved, but there are, plenty of progressive groups there. So it is, sunshine being the best disinfectant. People are now talking about these things. They're putting them out in the public square to be shamed and ridiculed in the way that they've been treated, and I think that's appropriate. But part of the goal of this coalition in the events that we will be doing in all 50 states, both on K-12 campuses and higher education campuses, is to promote these ideals of freedom of speech and open debate. And encouraging that on these college campuses. So exactly what you're asking about, that's what we're trying to do. I also want to go back just for a second about the role of educators, because part of this initiative also includes some teacher summits where we will be providing teachers with resources for civic literacy and civic education for them to utilize going forward, and how to teach these things appropriately and be effective as educators. So those events will be coming over the next year and a half. As well as toolkits of resources and information from our partnership organizations, the over 40 now that have joined this coalition, many of which produce education materials that can be used in classrooms, whether those be videos from PragerU and the amazing Founders Museum that is now at the White House and in state capitals around the country. The Turning Point USA that has a curriculum that is available as well, and many of our other partners, in addition to Hillsdale, that offer really high-quality civics education curriculum. We're going to make sure that those resources are out there for all of the educators, parents, families, homeschool, churches, and anyone who would be willing to join in with us to ensure that our students have the civic pride in America that our founding fathers would envision for this celebration. And if we do not have any other questions, okay, then we were going to conclude the press conference for today. Thank you so much for being here, and we would encourage all of you in the press to attend these events, cover these events as they are going on around the country, speak with our partners and understand what they're doing in their respective areas of influence. And really, this is, I believe, one of the most important things that we're doing to celebrate America 250. And so I really appreciate all of you being here and appreciate all of our leaders and our partners that are behind me in making this successful. Thank you so much.